In the not-too-distant future, the world had become overrun with crime. Governments across the globe were struggling to keep up with the sheer number of criminals that were plaguing their societies. Prisons were overcrowded, and there was simply no more space to house all of the convicted felons. The solution: space prison ships. These massive vessels were specially designed to house thousands of prisoners at once, and they were sent hurtling through the cosmos towards a distant planet that had been designated as a penal colony. The journey would take years, but it was seen as the only viable solution to the crime epidemic that had gripped the planet. The first prisoners to be sent into space were the worst of the worst. Murderers, rapists, and drug dealers were all rounded up and loaded onto the massive ships. They were given little in the way of provisions or comforts, and the conditions on the ships were harsh and unforgiving. As the years went by, the prison ships became something of a legend. People whispered about them in hushed tones, referring to them as the cursed vessels or the doomed ships. Few knew where they were headed, or what awaited the prisoners at the other end of their long journey. But for the prisoners themselves, life aboard the space prison ships was a grueling and miserable existence. They were packed together like sardines, with no room to move or breathe. Food was scarce, and many prisoners resorted to violence in order to secure their share of the rations. And yet, despite the harsh conditions, there was a certain camaraderie that developed among the prisoners. They were all in the same boat, so to speak, and they looked out for one another in the face of the harsh conditions they faced. Years passed, and the space prison ships hurtled ever closer to their destination. Some of the prisoners had died along the way, succumbing to illness or injuries sustained during violent altercations with their fellow inmates. Others had gone mad, unable to cope with the isolation and the constant threat of violence. But for those who remained, there was a glimmer of hope. They knew that their sentences would soon be up, and that they would have a chance to start anew on the penal colony that awaited them. And so, as the ships finally touched down on the barren, alien planet that was to be their new home, the prisoners emerged from their long confinement, blinking in the bright light of the alien sun. It wasn't easy, adapting to life on a distant world. The prisoners had to work hard to build their new homes, to grow their own food, and to establish a new society from scratch. But they were determined to make the most of their second chance, and over time, they built a thriving colony on the desolate planet. And so, the space prison ships became a footnote in history, a distant memory of a time when crime was rampant and the solution seemed to lie in the stars. But for those who had endured the long journey, it was a reminder of the strength of the human spirit and the power of hope in even the bleakest of circumstances. As the former prisoners of the space prison ships looked back on their journey, they realized that they had been given a unique opportunity. They had been forced to confront the consequences of their actions and to consider the impact that their crimes had on others. In the isolation of space, they had been given the chance to reflect on their past mistakes and to decide who they wanted to be in the future. And they had chosen to embrace their second chance, to work hard, to build a new society, and to make amends for their past wrongs. The lesson they had learned was clear. Even in the darkest of times, there is always hope. No matter how dire the situation may seem, there is always a chance to turn things around, to start anew, and to make a better life for ourselves and for those around us. And so, the former prisoners of the space prison ships became beacons of hope for others, reminding them that even the most difficult of journeys can lead to a brighter future. They had learned that it is never too late to change, and that with hard work, determination, and a little bit of luck, we can all overcome the obstacles that life throws our way. The message that they shared with the world was simple but profound. No matter what mistakes we may have made in the past, we all have the power to shape our own futures. It is up to us to choose the path we want to follow, and to do everything in our power to make our dreams a reality.